You're right.
May the 4th be with you.
Very good.
And today's episode of the Motorhome Matt podcast.
Can you safely power your motorhome with a portable power pack?
That's not easy to say. In the news, there are big changes to pet passports, and we have free tickets to Vanlove to give away.
Woo. And we answer your questions on one-stop shop insurance using an earth rod and plugging an RCD into a power bank.
Welcome to the Motorhome Matt podcast. I'm Keith Gooden.
And I'm Motorhome Matt.
Industry insights and expert advice for the world of motorhomes, caravans and campervans, and brought to you by That Leisure Shop and sponsored by Ripe.
Remember to follow on your favourite podcast app, or if you're watching on YouTube, click subscribe and the little bell.
It's a couple of weeks old because we record these a couple of weeks in advance, so please forgive us, but let's give you the news about changes to pet passports under Regulation EU 2026/131. Way! Now listen closely, it's complicated.
Okay, so many years ago, pre-Brexit, there was a pet passport for Great British citizens, and there was a pet passport for EU citizens. The GB pet passport was abolished, and you had to apply for an animal health certificate, which is expensive and a pain.
So you had to apply for it in this country or the EU?
In the UK, yeah.
Right.
And so many British citizens started applying for EU pet passports.
Instead. Right.
And they would have an address they could use to register. Either they had a second home there, a family member there, or they just blagged it.
A chemist shop in Nantes.
Something. Yeah, absolutely. And many vets were just dishing them out, quite happy to take the money and issue them. And that's what's changed. Those British citizens with an EU pet passport who are not actually resident in the EU can no longer use that EU pet passport. Right. They must apply for an animal health certificate here in Great Britain. And of course, this has upset a lot of British people because loads of us applied for an EU pet passport for our dog or our cat or our ferret, and we can no longer use them unless you are living full-time in the EU.
And having an EU passport isn't good enough. Yes, you're a citizen of the EU, but it's about residency.
Correct, yes. Yeah. And you will be asked to prove that you are living in the EU if you're trying to travel with your dog on a pet passport.
And how you will say, can they detect that I'm living there if I just tell them otherwise? Do you pay tax there?
That's a great way, isn't it? Yeah. So we asked Dr. James Greenwood, the BBC vet and friend of the podcast, for his comment. And James said there was a time recently when rumour had it that there may soon be a relaxation to pet travel rules between Great Britain and the EU. But as of the 22nd of April, 2026, things have instead gone the other way.
He goes on to say, my advice to owners is to make sure you are fully up to speed with the new rules. If you are a GB resident, you will not be able to travel on an EU passport. Check the rules for entry of your destination, and as soon as you have confirmed your travel plans, book your AHC appointment in good time with your vet accordingly. When he talks about an EU passport, he's talking about the EU pet passport.
Correct, and an AHC is the animal health certificate. Only certain official veterinarians are licensed to complete the AHC, and so it is not something to be left until the last minute.
Okay, have you got
Thank
that?
you, James.
Told you it was complicated.
Yeah.
This episode is all about complications. In fact, when Matt and Maddie, Motorhome Maddie, first explained it to me, I was boggled. I was ultimately boggled. So
you just wait.
Listen slow. You know that thing where you can speed up the podcast and listen in double time, but the pitch doesn't change? I suggested you go the other way and slow it down a bit. Your chance to win a great prize. Tickets to Vanlove. You can win a trackside pitch, which also includes entry for 2 adults. Thursday 18th of June to Sunday 21st of June 2026 at the Thruxton Race Circuit in Hampshire. And Matt, explain more.
Yeah, it's a great weekend. I've never been to Vanlove before, so this is a big weekend for me. Our team from That Leisure Shop are going as well, so we will be trading there. And big news, I don't know if this has been announced yet.
What?
I'm doing a DJ set live.
You're getting your decks out?
I'm getting my decks out, yes. Indie bangers, I think Saturday late afternoon, sorry. I'm going to be...
Girlfriend in a coma. Oh no, that's indie...
Yeah, you're not coming and singing.
Indie bangers, you mean the fast ones?
Yeah, it's going to be great. What's that coming over the hill? It's a monster. And so on. So yeah, it's going to be awesome. An hour of my favourite indie bangers. I've been put under huge pressure to do this. this, and I've given in. So you can win tickets to Vanlove. It's completely free to enter competition. Head to mhmp.info/win. Or if you just want to guarantee that you're going, buy your tickets now and get 10% off with the code Motorhome Matt at mhmp.info/Vanlove.
Our product of the week, it is the Nomad's Kitchen.
Love this.
A compact kitchen, £35 for the kitchen kit. It comes with all spices and container stickers.
Look at this. This is mine. We've been using this, so some of the spices are half empty now. It's great. It's so cute, isn't it? Lovely little leatherette kind of case.
It's a small leatherette case, about 7 inches by 5 inches, stuffed full of spices and knives and bits and pieces.
It's got a chopping board, knives and forks. Little bottle for your cooking oil. It is a little kitchen.
I thought that was your perfume.
I'm not rubbing that on my face. It's lovely. We love Nomad kitchen stuff. It's beautiful.
Great gift for somebody who's got a motorhome or caravan or likes camping or whatever. It's small, it's handy, and it's full of stuff for you to cook with. £35, and you can find out more at mhmp.info. That is /Nomad's Kitchen. mhmp.info/Nomad's Kitchen. Let's get into the main bit of the podcast for this week. We're talking about portable power packs, and like I said, I was boggled when this was explained to me earlier on, so sit back with a good drink on this one. It's an issue associated with portable power packs, isn't it, Matt? So what is it?
So a portable power pack used in isolation, as intended, is perfectly safe. Nothing wrong with them at all. So plugging an appliance straight into it. The complication comes when you decide to hook your motorhome or camper van up to the portable power pack. And the question is, should you? And if you shouldn't, why not? And is it not safe to do so? There's lots of advice on social media and YouTube and all over the internet, and much of it, I'm afraid, is very misleading. Now, we've been planning this episode for 2 hours. Mark and I from Bluefix were sat trying to record this a few weeks ago, and we gave up because we went down so many rabbit holes because of all the guidelines and rules that we needed to unpack. And so I invited Geeky Phil, who is electrical professor, essentially, to join me and Mark from Bluefix at the recent Stoneleigh show, where we took the podcast live, and we did this session for you at that event. So we are here live at the Stoneleigh show, and I'm joined by the bearded experts who are Geeky Phil and Mark from Bluefix. Welcome, guys. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
You are very welcome. You are very welcome indeed. Now, I'm really excited about this episode. I've got scripts and notes all prepared by these chaps, so thank you guys for all the prep you've done for this. We are going to unpack the safety and the risks associated with using a portable power pack. We've all got them, and how you should and shouldn't use one, and most importantly, why. So, boys, you are not to get too techie. Is that right? You start talking in capital letters, I am going to slap you.
I'll try my best. Just stamp on my toes.
So we're going to keep it plain English. So just, Mark, just set the scene for us. How are people kind of, using these things? On the face of it, tell us.
What we're seeing a lot these days is people, I think one of the most popular things is that want to use them to power their motorhomes. So they're going to plug them into the socket at the side of the vehicle to liven up the internal electrics in the van.
So hooking the van up to the portable power pack.
Yeah, okay. That's one of the things we're seeing these days quite a lot.
Yeah, which on the face of it sounds quite like a sensible idea of getting power into the van, especially if you've got a flat battery, be it a leisure or starter. But people are tempted to do this. Why?
Well, it makes sense, doesn't it?
It does.
Well, because you think, I've got a power bank. Let's use it for what we think it can be used for. But there are caveats to it.
Okay, so I've seen for years people hooking up generators to motorhomes, and these things, they make no noise, they make no smell. It seems like a good idea, but it's not. Is that right, Phil?
Well, it's not that it's a bad idea, it's how you do it. So a lot of people, there are regulations that actually suggest that you're not allowed to do this. which are the British Electrical Regulations, British Standard 7671, which could affect your insurance. I know I'm talking technical, but that's as far as
the British standard.
As far as I'll go with that side of it. What's more worrying is that people are using an adapter which connects the neutral and the earth together when they plug it into the van to make the RCDs work inside the van.
Okay, so
this is where the issue comes in.
So I've seen this a lot, where people are saying, make yourself your own adapter where you connect the neutral and earth inside the plug.
Yeah.
That plugs into that. So the UK plug, the 13 amp plug, join them together and you'll be fine.
Yes. No. So
right. We're gonna find out why.
Yes, we're gonna get through that.
So this is basically the same though as my house electrics, is it not? It's giving me 230 volts.
Sure.
And it's just like plugging a kettle in at home.
Well, there's a big difference between the grid system that we use in homes and a floating power source, which is what this is classed as. This is classed as a floating power source, and it doesn't actually have an earth, and it doesn't need an earth.
Right.
So, because it's not actually connected to the ground. So if I can give a quick explanation, I'll try and keep it as simple as possible. In the UK, we transmit power through the ground. So we have all these cables that are below the ground. A lot of other countries, they're in the air. Now, what that does is through capacitive energy, we actually put energy into the ground itself. And so to control that, we actually earth all our systems. We have a separate cable, if you like, that connects us to earth so that there's a path back for any of that energy that's picked up off those cables. I know that's probably quite hard to grasp, but by putting those cables through the ground, we actually energise the earth.
Right.
And so what reference to ground?
Yeah. And so what we need to do is we need to have a safe way for that energy to be discharged. So from the actual substation, we only sort of generally these days send the live and the neutral. There isn't actually an earth. And then when it gets to the house, we have a live and a neutral coming into the house.
Yeah.
And then at the house, we add the extra earth wire inside the house. And at your, what we call the cutout, where your main fuse is, the earth and the neutral are connected together. So our actual grid system doesn't actually use an earth. The earth only exists within our properties.
Right.
I know that's quite confusing, but it means that the issue we have is when we touch something live and we're connected to the ground and we make a circuit.
Yes.
So, and that's what RCDs do. They look for power coming out of a circuit and going to ground.
And then they trip off.
They trip, yeah.
Yeah, which is what happens at home, isn't it, with the consumer unit?
Yeah.
So all those trips, or old school fuses.
Well, there's two different types. So there's what you call a fuse, which we now call an MCB. That's an overload, so it's like a fuse. So if the live and the neutral are, overcurrent goes between them, then that blows. An RCD is completely different. What it looks for is energy leaking out of that circuit. So it's basically passing through somebody to ground.
Right.
But it has to be connected to ground to be able to work that out.
Okay, so with a power bank then that's different, so there is no earth. So
There's
Mark,
no earth.
is this a fault then of power banks, the fact they have no earth?
Not a fault, it's by design. So the power bank itself, when you're using it just for its sole purpose to power an item, is an isolated power supply. There is no earth reference, so it's perfectly safe. So a good analogy is a shaver socket. Now you notice in your bathroom, there's no main plug socket in the bathroom in your house.
Yeah,
because
true.
that socket would be earthed, but
Yeah.
there is a shaver socket, and that shaver socket is isolated. So you can stand in the bath having a shave and drop the shaver into the bath and nothing would happen, because there's no path to ground whatsoever.
That is very true.
Yeah, so nothing's going to happen.
I've never actually tested it.
Yeah, well,
So what you're saying, I could use my electric shaver
Yes.
and drop it in the water that I'm stood in,
Yeah,
plugged into the electric shaver socket, and I wouldn't get an electric shock.
that's right. It's an isolated transformer, so there's no path to earth. It doesn't exist.
So I'm not earthed via the bath.
No.
But
But you are earth to the earth, but not to the shaver socket, because the shaver socket
is isolated.
Is isolated.
So my
yes.
bath, there is an earth cable attached to the
Yeah,
bath
the
in our
bonding,
old
yeah.
house, and that's bonded to. I see the green cable.
Yep.
But because the shaver socket, the live and neutral are isolated, there's no link.
Correct.
Right. Okay. And what you're saying, Phil, is when we start linking neutral and earth together,
we're actually adding a hazard.
because this is double insulated.
Well,
it's isolated. It's
isolated.
floating
voltage.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
So if
this is starting to make sense.
So if you touched a metal sink in your camper van,
yeah,
and you touch the live wire on here, nothing would happen because there's no connection. There's no path for it to travel through. But when we connect the neutral, the blue wire, if you like, to the earth...
We've made a link.
And we've now made that connected to the neutral.
Yeah.
So now when we touch the sink and we touch the brown wire, the live wire, we become part of the circuit.
So what you're saying is a neutral earth linked cable is a bad idea.
It adds a hazard inside the motorhome. If you're not on a grid.
That it was never not designed for.
Now, the reason people suggest that creating this neutral earth bonded adapter is to make the trips work, the RCDs?
Yeah,
RCD, yes.
So there's lots of different types of them. Mark, just unpack, what's all that about, the different types of trips?
Well, there are different types of RCDs. You've got A-type, A, C and A. Now, the typical ones you'll find in motorhomes are AC, and the new ones may be the A. Now, the difference is in modern electrics, there's a certain amount of DC that's injected into the system, and there are certain RCDs that won't work if that DC voltage is present, and that's the AC type. So the A type are rated to work with a small amount of DC in the system as well. So as soon as, let's say you've got some mains powered fairy lights or some LED lights, that can inject a small amount of DC into the circuit, and that would disable or stop an AC type RCD from actually tripping.
Right, okay. But surely motorhomes have the better type A trip in them. The A's better?
A's are better, yeah, but there's no actual legislation in motorhomes, so you may have a new motorhome and it could have the older type AC RCD in the vehicle.
So you're telling me that a 2026 model might have old technology trip in it?
Potentially, yeah.
Okay, which means it wouldn't trip out at all.
So the British standards say in homes it has to be a type A. So, and there's legislation that forces people to put type A in homes.
Yeah.
But the regulations do say that motorhomes should have type A, but it's not enforceable.
Okay.
And because it's not enforceable, and there is a difference in cost between the two, you know, they're not. I don't want to call out any particular manufacturers, but some manufacturers are still delivering motorhomes with type A RCBOs rather than type AC rather than type A RCBO.
So how do you tell the difference between them all?
There's a little picture on the front of them, a little square box, and if it's got a single waveform, that's a type AC. That's the one that you don't want.
Known as a tilde, is that right?
Yeah.
So it's like a squiggly line, horizontal squiggly line.
And then below that, there'll be another line which will either look like two humps or a hump with a little peak in it.
Right.
So if it has two waveforms on it, that's a type A.
Good.
But if it only has the one waveform, it's a type AC.
Bad. Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and check mine when we finish this. Okay, so we need to go and check what type of trip we've got.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Now, you've brought a load of stuff with you today. We've got here an EcoFlow power pack.
Yes.
And we've picked this EcoFlow because that's yours. That's what you've got.
Yes.
This is not unique to EcoFlow. It's important to say this. This is power packs in general, all of them. Talk us through what you've got set up here.
Right. So you'll have to excuse me smiling because I haven't actually tested this. So I may not survive.
Is that a nervous smile, is it?
I may not survive. So we have, to prove this point, here we have, you've heard of Wago connectors. This is my new type. This is called a no-go connector. And
You've just twisted the live and neutral.
Yeah, I've twisted the live and the neutral together.
Well, not together, but the live's to live and neutral to neutral.
Yeah, so we have this here, and in a moment I'm going to energise this circuit. I'm going to take my shoes off and stand on the floor, and I'm going to touch the live. Okay?
Are you sure about this?
And theoretically, nothing will happen. After we've done that, below there is a block connector that has a Type A RCBO on it.
So a four-way power adapter for those
and I'm
listening.
going to prove to you that the RCD also doesn't work. So if I survive the first part of the test.
So just hang on a minute then. So is this the sort of thing that would kill you at home on a normal wall socket?
Well, if you didn't have an RCD protecting you and you were connected to ground, So because it's a grid system,
Yeah.
and you touch that, the power would flow from that through me back to the ground and probably cause cardiac arrest.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere near this.
Yeah,
No,
you
yeah,
stay
stay
over.
away.
You stay over there. So that's what would happen. But because this is a floating voltage system,
Yeah.
it's not actually connected to the ground.
No.
Now, if I touch the live and the neutral, I would get a shock because obviously I'm basically
You're
bridging
creating a circuit.
across the power. But that still wouldn't trip an RCD anyway, because RCDs don't trip with short circuit. They only trip with leakage out of the
As you
circuit.
said earlier, with basically
Yeah.
voltage escaping
Yeah.
to Earth.
Yeah.
So if
Right.
I touch both of them, the RCD wouldn't be interested, and there's nothing here in these fuses, even the small fuse in the plug for this, that would trip with me touching it. So I would just continuously sit there getting nothing here would cut off. That's why we have RCDs to protect us.
Right, drum roll,
Okay, I'm going to take these off
You're
just
gonna
in
take
case
his
everything
headphones off?
blows up.
because that does link you to my kit. So we want you
so I'm going
separate.
to take my shoes off.
The shoes are off. God, dear, when do you wash those?
Oh no, this morning actually. Right, so we're going to put this on.
Right, so the power pack is now on. The light is on.
Right, and I'm going to, with my meter, I'm going to show you that there is. I don't know if Michael wants to come over.
We've never had bare feet on the podcast before.
you?
Phil, no.
We need to do it on the beach.
We're not doing it again either.
So, and I'm just going to go across there and show you that we have. I don't know if you can come in.
We've got voltage. There we go. What are we
There you
reading? 230.
229.5 volts.
That was a genuine sigh.
Tell my mum I love her.
Right, so
So I'm now going to touch the live wire. And absolutely nothing happens.
you're not getting electric shock
No, not at all.
because this is double
It's an
insulated.
isolated.
There's no path to ground. No path to
Oh,
earth.
that's
It
really
can't happen.
disappointing, Phil. I was expecting you to start shaking
And I can
and
touch the neutral as well.
smoke out the top of your head.
I won't take that over just to prove that it is the same on the other side. That makes no difference either. If I touch both of them,
Bang.
you'll get a shock. Now, if we'd used an adapter then, neutral to earth,
yes.
you
And the earth was going through to this ground.
Let's say it was
I
metal
would have made
and the same the chassis.
Well,
if that was the
concrete
chassis of a
passes
vehicle,
power.
can someone make one quickly? Just
So
So next time, right? They do it again. This time we're going to plug the light into this power adapter, which has got a trip.
yeah, oh yeah, I'll put my shoes on.
Yeah, leave your shoes off.
Yeah, okay. So I need somebody just to hold this for me. Go on. So this here is a power adapter that has a trip, and I'm just going to show you that that trip is operating by pressing the test button. So as you can see,
So
that
the trip's
does
working.
So the RCDs are dual pole. Mark's going to come and hold that for me. Okay, so you can see that the light's back on now. So what you would hope is that when I touch this and I was connected to ground, that would trip. But as you can see, it doesn't.
So the trip hasn't gone. You can't see that because
And I'm
Mark's hand
touching
is
the
hiding
live
it.
wire. So the point is that even if you touch the live wire in your... Sorry, the point is even if you touch the live wire in your van, you still wouldn't get an electric shock anyway. So even if the outside of the kettle was live, you wouldn't get an electric shock.
Okay.
Do you wonder?
Yeah.
That's the point of it. So if you connect across the two of them, then obviously you're going to get a shock.
Yeah.
But by touching the live, even if something became live in the van, you don't need an earth. It's not required. The RCD is not required.
So actually linking, what you're saying is linking the power pack to earth is actually really dangerous. It
You're actually
creates the
adding a
problem.
hazard into the vehicle, yeah.
But otherwise, using a pack where you're plugging something directly into it is
Yeah.
perfectly safe.
But what you've got to the important point is that if it had a Type A, it would trip. But if it had a Type AC,
Yeah.
it probably wouldn't trip off an inverter, because the inverters, Type ACs do not trip with inverters.
Okay.
So if you've put that in and you're relying on your Type AC RCBOs, they won't trip. You touch the sync, you touch the live, you're going to get a shock and it's not going to trip.
Right.
So they have to be Type A's for them to trip.
Okay. So if you've got Type AC, definitely don't be doing this. So now, one way that people can introduce an earth is using levelling. So I'm sat in my motorhome and I'm on 4 rubber tyres. Right, I'm insulated from the earth, literally, aren't I? Although water is a very good transmitter of electricity.
So I did check this with an AI to do all the calculations for me.
Yeah.
And basically, in a heavy rainstorm where water's running down the side of the van and the tyre's saturated on the side and you're on wet ground, power could pass through the tyres.
Right, okay.
Theoretically.
Okay,
So-
in the rain.
Yeah, in the rain.
Now, I've just had levelling fitted to my van, and I've got now 4 metal rods coming from the chassis straight to earth.
Yes.
So I'm bypassing that potential insulation from the ground.
Yes.
Have I caused a problem?
No, because this is still a floating power supply. However, if you use that adapter and connected yourself to ground,
I'm
then
taking a massive risk, aren't I?
Well, you're connecting yourself to the grid system. Obviously, there's no potential of you getting a shock from that because this live is being produced in a different way. But if you stood outside your van and the chassis of your van became live and you then touched your van, you could get a shock.
Oh, those noisy neighbours. I know how to fix them.
But if you had a Type A RCBO, it would trip. Okay, but not with a Type AC. Now, there's one thing that I really need to point out. With the AI that we used to do the calculations, said that actually even the Type A wouldn't trip fast enough because of the amount of resistance in the system.
Right.
So it wouldn't trip within the 30 milliseconds required to stop you basically having a heart attack. So that's an important thing to consider. I mean, it did the calculations, I didn't, but it was working on basically having either legging legs or stabilisers down on a motorhome, that there'd be enough current to cause harm to you, but the actual speed that it would trip at would probably be greater than 30
So
milliseconds.
this applies to caravans as well, because obviously they've got their corner stabilisers, and potentially even through their plastic feet, it could still go to earth via the chassis, and especially if the grass is wet. So this neutral earth bonded adapter is not a clever idea.
Well, I want to add one more thing, which is to do again with legislation. So if you look at the British standards for motorhomes and caravans, because there is a section in there on it, it says that no motorhome or caravan can be connected by either a PME, protected multiple earth, or a TNCS, which is terra neutral combined separate. What that means is, in greater terms, is you are not allowed to connect the neutral and the earth together external to the motorhome. They cannot be connected that way. It's
so using one of these adapters is breaching the British standard.
It is, yeah. So all campsites have to have a TT system, which is terra, which basically means that there's an earth rod or earth plates in place to ensure that they are physically connected to the grid, to earth. So there is actually a statement in there in British standards. This is why we've got all this paperwork, because we wanted to make sure that we were giving people correct data.
Absolutely, yeah.
That you cannot use those systems. So as soon as you use that adapter externally from the van, you are basically
hooking up.
Yeah.
You're breaching the British standard.
Yeah, by hooking up using one of those.
Now, there's a new regulation as well, which has just come in, which has been updated rather, around battery storage. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a bit about that?
That gets quite technical, which is the INCS systems.
What's the basic principle?
So that system is to do with battery systems that are external to the vehicle, not internal in the vehicle.
Right.
So it doesn't. I don't know whether it really
is that relevant
to what we're doing.
Okay,
here,
fair enough. So we're not going. We'll maybe revisit that another day.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Mark, if a listener to this podcast and a prospective customer of yours rings you tomorrow and says, "Is my setup safe?" What do you say?
So you need to look at it. I mean, to look at it remotely, it's quite tricky. I mean, the minimum thing you could do is say, "Well, can you take a picture of your consumer unit and send it to us, and then we can see what type of system that you've got in the vehicle and how you should do it." But I think, as a standpoint, I think would say, if you want to use a power bank in your vehicle, use it for its intended purpose. Don't hook it up to the systems in the van.
So plug the appliance straight into it.
Straight into it. I mean, you could use a 4-way if you wanted to. There's no reason why you can't. But as long as it's just one or two devices, that's what it's designed for. If you want to charge a battery, use an external battery charger plugged into the
So if
to the
my
power
electric
bank.
battery has gone flat,
Yeah.
I could use a portable charger,
Yes.
battery charger, like
Yeah.
we use at home.
Yep. Exactly
Plug that into the power pack, connect the crocodile clips to the battery. That's
Yep.
safe.
That's safe. Absolutely safe.
Okay.
Yep.
But hooking the van up isn't.
It isn't.
Right,
no.
got it.
Yeah.
So, Phil, what are the things that change from van to van that mean you can't give a one-size-all-fits answer?
Well, first of all, even with new vans that have been produced, you can have two models that are a year apart, and everything internally electrically is different to each other.
Yeah.
This is quite common. So for us, we haven't sort of got a spec sheet where we can go, right, we know that this van has this electrical system in it. We don't know whether they've got type AC or type A RCBOs. We don't know if somebody else has added something. Very often dealers will do electrical work on vans before they're delivered, and you don't know what they've added. You know, you don't know whether they've added a bond or they've done something like that. You could have somebody who's had aircon installed and had extra circuits put in for that. So it's really important that really somebody knows what they're talking about, surveys the vehicle first. And I know that sounds like saying the word survey means a lot, but it means just having a look. You know, it's a 5-minute thing, just having a quick look and making sure that it does what it wants. Ultimately, if you're going to use an inverter a lot, I would suggest that you have a proper system installed in the vehicle rather than using a power bank. I think they're great. I mean, I built my van using this one a few years ago. Brilliant resource. You can take them out the van, you can use them in the house, you can do great things with them. So I'd never suggest that people don't use them, but actually they are safer than the grid as long as we don't mess around with them. We use them for what they're made for. You know, we just plug into them and use them as they are. Don't, you know, I see it quite often on campsites, a cable coming out the window and going into the shore.
Well, I've done that all the. I won't be doing that anymore.
No, well, as long as there's no earth to neutral bonding, then it's fine, because you don't need the RCDs anyway, because they're not going to. It's not going to do anything. But if there is an earth to neutral bond on your vehicle already internally,
you're running the risk,
and you don't know whether somebody's added that or whether it's part of the system that's already installed in.
And it is likely to be part of the system that's already installed.
Yeah.
It's quite common.
Yeah. So, Phil, you touch on modifications.
Yes.
Let's touch on insurance. We haven't got anyone here from the insurance industry to talk about this. But basically, what kind of modification would I need to declare to my insurer?
Right, so in my experience, you declare everything. But generally, if you phone up your broker and say, oh, I've had an electrical system installed, or that's a permanent change to the vehicle or you're using, they'll normally go, oh, that's okay. You know, we don't need to add that to your policy because you're expected to have it done, but you still need to tell them. You know, it still needs to be recorded that you're using it in a certain way. For me, using a power bank like this and plugging it into the side of the van is not using it in the way that it was meant to be used.
Right.
And because of that, I think that there could be insurance issues. If you went, oh, I had it plugged into my power bank and I'd got it plugged into the side of the van using this adapter and the whole thing caught fire, you know, and it might have been nothing to do with that at all. However, an insurance company may take the line that because that was against British standards, it wasn't class. And if it's against British standards, it's obviously not safe to do. You've introduced a hazard into the van that wasn't there before, and so therefore they may take issue with that.
And if, as we are here, we're part less than 6 metres apart.
Yes,
because you know that's how it is on a show.
Of course.
My neighbour catches fire.
Yep.
I'm paying for that as well.
Well,
because my insurance is invalid.
Yeah, so you would then personally be liable for any damage caused to the other vehicles if your insurance becomes void. And so you could be personally sued for any damages to any, I mean, you burn out 30 vans on a little car park, you will be paying for all of those 30 vans.
Good luck with that.
I think it's just it's one of those things that you could say it won't happen, but it does happen.
Yeah, and as far as we're aware, I've never heard of this happening. I've never heard of anybody having an injury, electric shock, from a portable power pack.
That wouldn't be what I'd be more worried about. I'd be more worried about somebody using the system in such a way that because the electrics in the van are not made to be run off inverters. So that they're not, unless they've been upgraded to have Type A, RCBOs, etc., they're made to be run from the grid.
Got it.
So, and there could be an argument made that you were using the van in a way that it wasn't meant to
intended.
be. And then if something caught fire in the van, whether it was anything to do with the power bank or not, a heater falls over or something happens, then you could find yourself liable with the insurance company.
In hot water with that electric shaver, as
Yes.
it were. Mark, if someone was going to take one thing away from this episode, what would your advice be?
Use the power bank for its intended use. And if you want a fully integrated system in the van, then get a proper system installed with a proper inverter that has a neutral earth bond built in as part of the system.
So that's an important point, isn't it? There are manufacturers of this stuff
absolutely.
that have this neutral earth bond wired into them.
Yeah.
So the trips do work.
Yes.
And it detects whether you're connected to the grid, i.e. via the hookup.
Absolutely.
Or you're connected to a battery.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing, is that the systems will tell you, or by automation, it knows that you've got mains hookup, so therefore it turns the bond off. When you're off on battery, it releases it.
Yeah.
And that way then you're protected, so when you're on hookup you're using the site's earthing, and when you're in the van, you're in your isolated system, you no longer have that connection to earth outside the vehicle, so you have no earth reference, so it's perfectly safe inside of the vehicle.
Got it.
And I think those are the two most important things to take away from this.
Phil, what would your tip be for someone taking away from this?
The same kind of thing. Only use the power bank for the way it was meant to be used. If you want to charge your battery, get a little plug-on battery charger to do it with. And if you are going to do something like this, we have to say this, just get professional advice.
Of course.
Everything that we've said here, I mean, we do this all the time, but it is always worth getting professional advice to so we don't make any mistakes.
Of course. Well, my takeaway is going to be go and look at my trip and see if it's a Type A or a Type AC.
Yeah.
So I'm going to rewind and listen to those descriptions so I know which squiggly lines I'm looking at and looking for on mine. Guys, thank you so much. Mark, just give Bluefix a quick shout out. What's the web address where people can find you?
Bluefix.co.uk. Just Google Bluefix and we'll come up.
Brilliant. Guys, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
For trying to unpack what is a very, very complicated and fraught with regulation topic, and one where actually the University of YouTube is probably not the best place to get advice, which is exactly where this podcast is going. So
well, hopefully some of your listeners have found it educational.
I'm sure they absolutely have, and your physical demonstration put you at risk.
Death-defying myth-busting.
I'd tell you, you're like a circus act. The budget was tight.
I'll tell my grandkids about this.
Thank you both.
Well, Matt, there's a lot to think about there, isn't there?
Oh, gosh, there certainly is. And my advice is rewind it and watch it again and really understand the impact of what you're doing by plugging in your motorhome to your portable power pack. There's a curveball as well about hooking up outside the house. I've taken my van home after a weekend away and I've plugged it in at the house to an outside socket we've got on the wall, 16 amp socket, which is earthed, and I'm now breaching this British standard. And this is a well-known fact by the authorities that is not communicated by the motorhome industry to the consumer. And what I've done is I have essentially, and bear with me, the van is isolated, it's on its rubbered wheels, okay, it's off the ground essentially. I've hooked it up, so now I'm connected to the earth via the neutral, so I'm connected to the earth via the grid, and if there was a problem, that van is now live, and if I touch it standing on the ground, I am the link between the van and earth. And I would get electrocuted. It's textbook electrocution because it now has a route via the house back to the grid. Whereas before, it was completely isolated. So people say, well, what do I do then? So what I must do is recreate how a campsite is installed, and they follow their own guidelines, which is an earth rod on the socket to earth, not to neutral, and have its own trip. And then that would be completely safe. And I am going to change the socket on the outside of my house to one of these.
So we don't want to panic people, do we?
No, not to panic people, but I think it's really important that you're aware of this risk, because there is a chance that if you connect to a portable power pack, you're not protected. If you hook the van up, or if you plug in at your house or into the ring main of the house, you are creating the potential for a problem and your electrocution if something went wrong.
If you're after a campsite where you can relax but still have plenty to do, then Matt is here with a fantastic campsite recommendation. Riverside Caravan Park in High Bentham.
Now, I've stayed at Riverside a few times now, and it's one of my top campsites. In fact, I'm heading back there again early this summer. It's family run, beautifully kept, and the welcome is always spot on.
And it's not one of those places where you arrive, sit down and then wonder what on earth you can do with yourself by 10 a.m.
No, not at all. Riverside's a great base for getting out and exploring. You've got walks all around you, from easy local strolls to bigger days out around the Three Peaks, Malham Cove and the Ingleton Waterfalls Trail. If fishing's your thing, there's river fishing and an on-site lake. And golfers, you're not far from Bentham Golf Course, which has views that are almost distracting.
Plus, the train station is just a short walk away, so you can nip off to Skipton, Lancaster or even Morecambe without having to move the motorhome.
And that's the beauty of it. You can pitch up for a few days, leave everything set up, head out exploring, and then come back to a spacious pitch, good facilities and properly switch off.
Riverside Caravan Park, one to add to the list. Find out more at mhmp.info/Riverside. It's the Motorhome Matt podcast with me, Keith Gooden.
And me, Motorhome Matt.
And is brought to you with thatleisureshop.com and sponsored by Ripe.
Get 15% off your premium with Ripe. The discount applies automatically if you click the link in the episode description.
OK, time for the Q&A, the questions and answers. You ask the questions and Matt, for it is he, will answer them. And if he doesn't know, he'll ask another expert who jolly well does. Every so often on the podcast, we get a question which is posed for our sponsor, Ripe. Steve in Nailsea has come up with this one. Matt and Keith, help! The CMC?
Caravan Motorhome Club
will no longer be offering their red pennant one-stop shop travel, breakdown, medical and dog insurance for Europe-bound camper vanners from the end of January 2026. Steve says, I gather this is because their underwriter says it no longer fits their business model and, as of yet, the CMC have not found a replacement underwriter. Who else offers an equivalent one-stop shop solution? Having done a quick Google search, no one else appears to offer all four aspects of that red pennant insurance. Maybe Ripe could do a bundled offering.
So we posed the question to Ripe and they came back with, hello, sorry to hear that you're currently unable to get the exact cover you need. At the moment, this isn't something we're looking at, but as you've brought it to our attention, we'll take a closer look at it. Thanks, said Mel from Ripe.
If you're interested in this, write in. Ripe can go to their underwriter with your feedback. And remember, you get 15% off your premium with Ripe, and the discount applies automatically if you click the link in the episode description. Dave from Nottingham has posed a question. In a previous podcast, you mentioned using power packs on motorhomes and not to plug them in. I use a generator with an earthing rod that I bang into the ground by about 2 feet. It has an earth connector that I can connect to the generator. Could I use this technology with a power supply?
Well, hopefully this episode has clarified this for you, Dave. And thanks so much for your question. We've had to read it because this is Disco Dave.
Not just Matt doing the disco, it's Disco Dave as well.
And Dave played his question in to us with a in the background. Yeah. And of course that breaches our copyright.
We can't do that. We can't do that.
So Dave, please play the Moto Matt podcast theme tune. We own that copyright. Or just record your question or we'll read it for you. This is a question I'm regularly asked about using an earth rod with a portable power pack. If you did, you would be in the breaching the British standard, and it could make your van live to touch, as we have explained, if a fault were to occur. So no, don't do it. You could do it, but there is a risk of you being electrocuted, so don't do it.
Disco Dave, do you know anybody who can beatbox? No?
Don't ever do that again.
Stephen Shepherd's in Letchworth Garden City. Hi, Matt. Reference your last podcast when talking about the danger of plugging in a power station to an EHU?
Electric hookup.
Due to it not having an earth. Would an RCD, residual current device...
You know that now.
Yep, plugged into the power station first, and then the mains plugged into that instead of directly into the power station, solve the problem?
No, as you've just seen demonstrated by Geeky Phil. So Phil was barefoot, held onto the live wire that was coming out of the portable power pack. Trip didn't go. Doesn't detect that he's connected the electric to earth.
And don't do that at home.
Don't try at home. But no, you are safe because the portable power pack is isolated. It's double insulated.
That may be the case, but still
it has no connection to earth. If it did, you would get electrocuted. So a breaker wouldn't work unless it was a Type A breaker. So hopefully this episode has given some clarity to your question, Stephen.
You've boggled me completely with this one. With all your electricery.
Go and listen to it again.
And your DJing. How do people get in touch?
We would love it if you did. Just head to mhmp.info/Ask Matt. You can record your question with the orange button or fill in the form and we'll read it for you. Maybe you've got a question about this topic. Please send it in. Mark at Bluefix and Geeky Phil are both very happy to come back to us with answers.
And what about Disco Dave?
Disco Dave... He's always got a question.
And if you're looking for trusted brands and services, then make sure you visit the Motorhome Matt approved directory. It's at mhmp.info/approved.
And once again, remember to follow on your favourite podcast app if you're listening, or if you're watching on YouTube, please click the bell and that little subscribe button. I'll be honest, NordVPN started as something I only used while travelling, and now it's on all my devices all of the time.
All of them, even at home?
Yep, absolutely. Public Wi-Fi is the obvious risk, but even at home, I like knowing my data is protected. It blocks malware, dodgy sites, ads, the lot, and the Threat Protection Pro acts like a personal bouncer for your browser.
If your name's not on the list, you ain't coming in. So it's not just for internet gurus and digital nomads?
No, it's not. Absolutely not. It's for anyone using the internet. So whether you're booking a site, streaming TV, or checking your bank, NordVPN just quietly keeps it safe in the background.
And where do they go?
Just head to nordvpn.com/Motorhome Matt. You can get 4 months free thrown in, and you've got 30 days to change your mind if it's not for you.
Simple as that.
Sorted in minutes. It's worth every penny.
Sorry about this. Luke, we're all over the shop today.
You are, definitely. This is probably the worst one we've ever
Yeah, the worst one we've
Luke's had holiday. Keeping him on his toes.
That's Maddie's idea of a sort of an inspirational chat for us.
Yeah.
This is the worst one. Let's start the whole thing. Sorry, Luke, we're going to start the whole thing again.
Can we just start the whole episode?
We're going to start the whole... 3, 2, 1.